Hello Runescape fans, my name's Vamoria and welcome to the very first episode of a brand new video series originally titled The History of RuneScape Quests that talks about RuneScape quests throughout this game's long history, so that players can be reminded of the quests that they might have forgotten about, can catch up on the plot of quests they might have missed, and learn a bit more about the game that we all love. This episode will be covering the first three still available quests that have existed since the very beginning of RuneScape. I'll be running down the quests Cook's Assistant, the Restless Ghost and Shield of Arrav, with a bit of a review for each one and a discussion on how they fit into the wider world of Gielinor. All of these quests are considered to be novice difficulty and were available upon the release of the game in 2001, along with 3 other quests which have now been discontinued. I might end up doing a special looking at those, but for now my intention is not to cover removed content. With that out of the way, let's get started. So Cook's Assistant is a remix on a classic, and it involves the player character assisting a cook, specifically the cook of Lumbridge Castle, who wants to make a cake for Duke Horatio's birthday. He has forgotten his ingredients, so tasks the player with tracking down some top quality milk, a super large egg, and some extra fine flour. That's it. That's the entire quest. It's simple, and is intended purely as a vehicle for getting the player to explore the town of Lumbridge, which once upon a time was the de facto beginning town for players straight out of the tutorial. Originally, the quest could be completed with an ordinary egg, a bucket of milk and some flour, but the quest was reworked in 2009 to be marginally more difficult, requiring specific items that could only be obtained during the quest. In regards to a review, there honestly isn't much to say. It's a simple fetch quest. The next quest to discuss is Restless Ghost, which can be started by talking to Father Eric, the priest of Lumbridge Church. He will talk about a ghost that has been haunting the graveyard and ask the player to exorcise this ghost. To do this, he points the player towards Father Ernie, a priest living a life of solitude in the Lumbridge swamps. Ernie has taken a vow of silence for 2 years, but must restart these 2 years every time he is forced to interact with an adventurer, which he says happens on basically a weekly basis. Ernie gives the player a ghost speak amulet, which will come up time and time again in future quests, and allows the player to speak with the deceased. Having equipped this amulet and now able to understand the graveyard ghost, he will explain that he has lost his skull, which is likely why he's forced to haunt the grounds near his coffin. The adventurer goes to collect this skull from its resting place and fights off a skeletal warlock, who was responsible for the ghost's death, or the person's death who had gone to be the ghost. You know what I mean. The warlock is defeated, the skull is replaced, and the ghost will pass on to the other side. For a review, I really like this quest. I have fond memories of walking a school friend through this quest, and I like that the Ghost Speak amulet comes from such a simple quest, but is used in so many future quests. Around 84 by my count. I just think that's kind of cool. The final quest for this episode is Shield of Arrav, a notoriously difficult quest for isolated no-lifers like myself. It sees the adventurer trying to recover the stolen halves of the Shield of Arrav, which has been pilfered by a gang of organised criminals. Arrav was a famous warrior who, during the 4th Age of Gielinor, defended the city of Avaroka, the modern-day Varrock, from a Majorat necromancer named Zamorigal, and this stolen shield belonged to him. This plot is fleshed out more in later quests, but for now you just need to know that Arrav is a legendary warrior and is revered within the city of Varrock. After speaking to Reldo, the librarian in Varrock Castle, about a quest, the player finds a book detailing how the shield was stolen from the nearby museum by a group of criminals known as the Phoenix Gang. The player is directed to the town's fur seller, Barrack, who then points the player towards a character known as Straven, who is one of the leaders of the Phoenix Gang. He will initially deny all connections and will speak in hypotheticals about how, if he were a member of the gang, he might want someone to kill a local criminal named Johnny the Beard. That's only if he was a member of the gang, which obviously he isn't. Wink. The player picks up the hint, starts a fight at the Blue Moon Inn, and steals an intel report from Johnny. Straven will then let you join the Phoenixes, and inside their hideout you can find one half of the shield. The other half can be found by following a lead that puts you into contact with a lady named Katrine, who runs the Black Arm Gang. To join, Katrine asks the player to retrieve 2 specialised crossbows from the Phoenix Gang, which is not a problem if you've previously joined them. Inside their hideout, you can find the second half of the Shield, as well as notes detailing how Katrine and Straven used to both belong to the Phoenix gang, but Katrine left along with a number of defectors following an argument in which the Shield was broken in twain. The shield is then restored and returned to its rightful place in the museum. What made this quest annoying was that originally you could only ever join one gang, and you had to have a friend join the other one. As an antisocial child though, I always found finding someone else to do this with me was extremely difficult. This was changed in 2017 so that the player could join both gangs simultaneously. Review wise, I quite like this quest. It adds a bit of detail to Varrock, which gets built upon in later quests, and as much as I bemoan it, having to have a friend help you out in order to complete a quest is prime RuneScape, and harkens back to those nostalgic days where you'd spend all day in school talking about playing RuneScape, then you'd go home, log on, and hang out with your friends. Truly a simpler time. And there we go. The early RuneScape quests were incredibly simple, and it's clear that the creators, the Gower brothers, hadn't really hammered out any of the deep lore that now exists around the world, and were focused on telling these smaller, kind of self-contained stories. The other 3 quests released around this time were Demon Slayer, which had you find a magical sword to kill a demon, Romeo and Juliet, which is just Romeo and Juliet but in RuneScape, and Sheep Shearer, which had you shearing a sheep for wool. All 3 of these quests have now been discontinued or worked into other slightly more complicated quests or mini quests, but as you can see, quest design around this time was very simple. Thank you so much for listening. Please feel free to like the video if you learned anything, subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it, and leave me a comment to let me know if you have any fond memories of any of these quests. You take care.